Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Disney Classics podcast. And then this is the show where we like to talk about Disney films. And today we're doing one of our bonuses. We're actually talking about a Pixar film today. We're talking about the movie Up. For a long time, my favorite movie of all movies. And I still really, really love it. So I'm excited to get a chance to talk about it. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford's here.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good, doing good. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about this movie. And this movie was only the second movie to be nominated, animated film to be nominated for Best Picture. So that was really exciting. And it was a winner of 2 Oscars for score and for animated film. And what was your experience with this movie as far as when you saw it and everything? And what did you think of it?
I adore this movie and have from the very first time that I saw it. I saw it in the theater opening weekend. And, Pixar, I don't know. Someone probably has a name for it, Rachel. I kind of feel like this is like this golden era of Pixar films, with Ratatouille, Wall-E, just these films were all so exceptionally good, in my opinion. And Up, I think it's a perfect movie. I love everything. I just love everything about it. Anytime I can rewatch it, I do. I can. I was thrilled to be able to watch it again this weekend, to prep for the podcast. And anyway, I love everything about this movie. And
I feel like for some reason it's gotten like a backlash, probably because it was so successful, that you hear a lot of people with criticisms that, it's only the first 10 minutes. That's great. Things like that. But I disagree. And we're going to talk about why.
I totally disagree. It's just nonsense. It's just people needing something to criticize,
Yeah. And I showed you a picture, but when I bought my house, it was my first home
that I
ever purchased.
This is the coolest.
It was right around my birthday. I closed on the house on the 30th of January. My birthday's on the 23rd. And so I wanted to do an open house, but I kind of made it a combined birthday party / open house party. And I had I always wanted to do one of those like fancy cakes,
Yeah.
And so I had one made with an up house on the top with the balloons, with everything. It had 2 tiers, 1 tier with all of my favorite vacation places. There was Hawaii, there was New York, there was Utah on there, my favorite places. And then the second layer was like clouds and stuff like that. And then the top had this little house on it, and like the up house. And it was just a special. I was saying on Twitter that it very well might have been the best day of my life.
That cake, Rachel.
Getting all to see all my friends, and I had like an adventure book, and I had grape buttons for everybody. It was really fun.
How fun! Oh, what a happy day! And that cake was seriously remarkable, absolutely remarkable. That should have gone. That could go into one of those contests, cake making contests, and win. It was beautiful, just beautiful and meaningful. That it's your home. And anyway, that's so cool. Now, speaking of the Up house too, Rach, there's this famous house that's here in the Salt Lake Valley, where we both live. That was built to be like a real life instance of Carl Frederickson's house.
Yeah.
Now, I've only seen pictures. Have you ever been?
I mean, I've driven by it, but
I've never driven by it. I've got to.
I've never been inside or had pictures taken or whatever. Like I know people do like their engagement photos and things like that there.
Yeah.
And that would be really fun.
Yeah. I need one of these years. I gotta go and drive.
Yeah, we would
try to buy it.
We should.
Field trip. Talking Disney field trip.
And the reason why we decided to talk about this month is that with the release of Elemental, then we have Carl's date is scheduled, which is going to be fun.
A short film. The return of the short film in front of a Pixar release. I'm excited.
Yeah, they haven't had one since Bow in 2018.
Yeah.
And it says, I'm just looking at the Wikipedia on it. Carl Fredricksen reluctantly goes on his first date since his late wife Ellie's death, but admits having no idea how dating works. So they must have gotten this recorded before Ed Asner passed away. It
Yeah,
looks like,
that's what I'm wondering. Is he credited? I haven't checked to see if he's
I think it was just barely. It says prior to his death on August 29th, 2021, Ed Asner recorded his dialogue in the spring of 2021.
Okay.
So it looks like they got very lucky.
Oh, that'll be wonderful. He was just so great in this role. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm excited to see him in this new one.
Yes, me too.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like Peterson says that the director's Bob Peterson says, no one will ever replace Ellie for Carl. This is just friendship. This is just honoring her. Ellie saying, go have a new adventure. And this really puts that to the test. Should he do this or not? So that sounds fun.
Oh, I'm excited. Can't wait. I love the was it Doug Days? I can't remember the name of the short films that were on Disney Plus that were just about Doug and Carl and Russell. Just kind of had a little domestic stuff at Carl's house. I think Russell was in some of the episodes, but for sure Carl and Doug were. And I thought those were really fun. Really cute.
Yeah, me too. So let's start on this opening sequence. They call it Married Life opening sequence that they have. That you start out with this spotlight on adventure, that they do. It's telling.
Don't you love that? As, a great way to introduce Charles Muntz and then of course these two kids, how Carl and Ellie meet when they're young.
Yeah. So they had a problem with Carl and Muntz being portrayed as basically the same age or close to age in the movie, and they were originally going to have Muntz they were going to have Kevin's eggs be like fountains of youth. And so that was going to explain why they were basically the same age. But it just was too clunky in the script. And they said that Pete Docter said that they felt like the audiences would be forgiving of this. It says that but it was too distracting, and he said he felt like people would forgive the minor inconsistency in the story. Which
it doesn't bug me.
Is true.
What do you think about it?
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, just like with Beauty and the Beast, you can nitpick it and be like, why did they say, that they were in the timeline doesn't quite make sense with Be Our Guest when he talks about 10 years we've been resting, and what were they like, how old is Chip, and what it's confusing, but it doesn't matter, who cares, the movie's delightful. Every movie has plot holes. Every movie has, if you're looking for a flawless film, then you're going to be waiting a long time. So yeah, it doesn't bother me, but that is something that there is a reason. It's not like they didn't consider that, and they just had to do what they had to do to make the story work. But yeah, there's the spirit of adventure, and then you meet Ellie, and she has her adventure book, and she says, "Crush your heart," and that's a theme throughout the whole movie. Is crush your heart, which I love.
I do too.
Yeah, and she says, "I'm saving these pages for all the adventures I'm going to have," and then swear you'll take us. Cross your heart. And then this is where it gets into the montage part of it.
Right. The montage with just, the wonderful music. And I just think that moves everybody who sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. You see that they can't have kids, which is really sad for Ellie, especially. And you see their whole life together. You see all the different ties. I love that montage.
I do too. The ties.
Tiniest ties.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. And you find out about the Grape Soda Club, and then we get out of that. And I think what the problem is that people seem to miss, it seems like, that are so focused on that introductory sequence, is that sequence is a tragedy in the eyes of Carl. That's not like a happy sequence. He feels like he has let Ellie down. He feels all this regret.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole movie, he keeps talking to her and how frustrated he is and how sad he is and all of that. And so it's not really it's I don't know. It's to me, to me, they set up that introductory life for him. And then the whole rest of the movie is then building upon that to getting to the point where he sees Ellie's note and go on, have your adventure. And he realizes that she didn't have regret, that she loved him no matter what, and that she really valued him. And to me, that's what makes the whole story pay off. This, I think you couldn't just have the married life sequence. You need the whole movie and that whole relationship between Ellie and Carl to get to that moment where he realizes that he was truly loved. And even just talking about it, I tear up. I just think it's so beautiful.
It's beautiful. I know. I mean, I just, cried throughout. There's like three places
Yeah.
I always crying up, and I did again, rewatching it.
Yeah.
I appreciate your analysis of this, because the that whole sequence, which is it's such a wonderful way. I think it's such a wonderful storytelling device to talk about how deeply these two love each other and really what a good life that they've had. And then, as you said, it ends. Carl is devastated.
Yeah.
And also Carl is stuck. And
that's a good way to put it.
And he, at least from my perspective, he uses his love for Ellie. It's all tied in with the house, right? And I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but the house literally becomes like this beast of burden, on him. I mean, that's it's a burden. Like he's the beast of burden, and he's like hauling it with the garden hose,
Well, it's kind of symbolic of his regret.
Yeah,
he feels
exactly.
like he didn't love her enough. He feels like the life wasn't good enough because there were all the stuff I'm going to do. There was no adventure, that he had promised her.
Well, and then, and then what's so sad too, that we learned about in that montage, is that Harry finally just says, to heck with it. And he goes and buys those plane tickets to Venezuela.
Yeah.
And then Ellie gets sick and they can't go. And those plane tickets, if I'm not mistaken, he keeps them on the mantle.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's all like a symbol of, I failed, right? I failed my wife, and now she's gone, and life is not worth living.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
And so again, everything, progress and all this stuff is going on around him, which I think is symbolic of all the new construction. And then his house remains, because he's not going to give it up. And I don't necessarily want to fault that, because he's old, he's elderly, and this house means so much to him, but also he's not willing to go on to that quote unquote next adventure.
Yeah. Well, he feels like the next adventure is just to die.
Right.
And that's another thing.
Shady Oaks. Right.
Yeah. And that's what other thing that makes the ending so moving is that he's found his new adventure with Russell, and he's there with him when Russell needs him. And Russell talks about the best things in life are just the when you're counting the blue and green, blue and red cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Russell, he's there to assist the elderly.
And isn't Russell like one of the greatest characters ever?
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
really cute.
he's so cute. I mean, they found such a great little child actor for him,
Yeah.
but the script is so good.
Hmm. Yeah, really cute. And then you see this scene where in the montage you would see them creating the mailbox with their hands and paint everything. And then the construction worker takes down the mailbox and he gets really upset and hits the man with his cane because they're trying to build all around his house. He doesn't want to sell his house. And so that's when this whole plan kind of comes to because he's declared as a menace.
Yeah, and
Um,
they're gonna send him to Shady Oaks, to this retirement
yeah.
community.
And he's like, the guys from Shady Oaks will pick you up in the morning. And then you see him looking through the adventure book stuff I'm going to do. And he's just devastated. It's so sad. Every time he looks at that book, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then so he ends up they come to pick him up and he's like, sayonara, suckers. And that he's blown up all these balloons and made his house into a flying house.
Isn't that just like the most whimsical
Yeah.
thing? It really reminds me of like something that you see in a Miyazaki film.
Yeah, it does have that. I can see that.
Yeah, but then it's its own wonderful self, that these bazillion balloons that he's got, and as well as the navigation system that he's developed and everything. So delightful.
And he goes up there and then all of a sudden on his door, knock, knock, knock. And he's like, what? And Russell is there. Like, I found the snipes. So
I love
now,
that shot with Russell, just kind of clinging to the side of the house when Carl opens the front
yeah,
door.
yeah.
Ah,
And so then, yeah, you see some pretty fun adventure as they're going through the sky, and he says that he talks to Ellie and he says, I came all this way to get stuck in this rock pile, but don't you worry, we'll get our house over there. And so then they're going to kind of drag it over to the other side.
that storm
So,
sequence is exciting. It
mhm.
kind of Wizard of Oz-esque in a way. I
Yeah,
mean, but it's cool. I mean, I love it. And then when they discover where they are, this
I
film
can
has
see
got so
that.
many great. Oh, sorry. After you.
No, I can see that. Yeah, the Wizard of Oz comparison. I wouldn't have thought of it, but yeah, I can see that.
I love the dude, there's so many great little side gags and things that happen. One of my favorites is when Russell's talking about his GPS, like, oh yeah, this
Oh
GPS
yeah,
helped me get through this storm, beep boop 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 boop, whatever, and then he accidentally hucks it out the
yeah, that's a
window.
good one.
It's one of the many. I love, just to backtrack just a touch. One of my favorites is when Carl is coming after that opening montage and we're all crying. Carl wakes up at home and there's going through his day, and he's got that stair glider thing or whatever that
Yeah.
people who aren't able to use stairs. It's just, I just love the tone of it, just how it's so slow. And
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
lots of good stuff in this film with that, I think,
Well,
in
and it's
that
really
regard.
good too because you see him over the course of the movie, they walk all this way and come up against months and other things. Like you see him kind of come alive as a person where he's
Yes.
in this rut, like you were saying, he's stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I just love how he just talks to Ellie
I do
through the
too. He just kind of talks at the house.
mm.
Is
Yeah, and it is kind of interesting that as the story goes, he becomes kind of less sentimental because
Yeah.
he has now these relationships with a real person.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
And
living person.
mhm.
Yeah.
And he's dealing with the problems right in front of him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that he's valued as like a human, that his effort actually matters in this. And he's like,
Oh,
if he, I'm
with
gonna get
your
this house to the
yeah.
other side if it kills
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he tells, yeah, I thought it was funny. He says to Russell that let's play the game. Let's see who can be quiet the longest. Cool. My mom loves that
My
game,
mom loves this game.
which was
Again,
really funny.
like any parent or anybody who's, hung out with kids, like, yeah.
Yeah. And we start to learn more about Russell as they walk. We learned that he's never been camping before, and yet his dad loves camping, which is a little, that makes Carl kind of like,
Ooh,
and then they meet Kevin, and that's when Russell says, "I'm a wilderness explorer, so I'm a friend to all nature." Um, I will say, for the most part, this movie looks beautiful. It still holds up, the animation, but some of the animation with Kevin is the only part that I think doesn't. It looks a little,
how interesting. What
yeah.
parts for you? I didn't have that. I didn't have that experience. But tell
I
me about
It
it.
was the only time when, like, when he's sort of lurching forward, that some of the rendering looked a little, that sort of lower grade,
Yeah,
um to CG animation. There were just some spots with Kevin that the rendering looked a little fuzzy to me. Uh,
yeah. No,
and
that's a okay.
so that's the only thing that I noticed in that I had never noticed before.
Hmm.
But the relationship between Kevin and Russell is very sweet.
I like it too.
Hmm.
Kevin is such a great character, and again, impressive because it's a fully pantomime character, other than just kind of like the sounds he
Hmm.
makes. But oh, Kevin's great.
So then we get introduced to the dogs and Doug, and we
My
get the
gosh,
Alpha squeaky
Doug.
voice.
Oh,
The
it's just
squeaky voice
so
of Alpha.
funny. Yeah.
Squirrel. I mean, some people don't like the dogs. Some people, it's too silly. It's too much. But how do you feel?
Oh, I love the dogs. Love them. I think they're so funny. It fits with what Charles Muntz, I mean, they tied that all in with him, particularly in that reel, that we see at the beginning of the movie. But I think they're hilarious. And I mean, Doug is like one of my favorite characters. He's just so cute because, again, that's just what you clearly. I think somebody has owned a golden retriever, but uh, just because I just feel like they just what the things that Doug says is what the dog is thinking, and it just worked.
Yeah.
I just thought it all worked, and sure, maybe they're cartoony, but the whole thing's cartoony.
Yeah.
This
Like the
guy
whole thing.
flew a
I mean, I can
house with
understand
balloons.
when they have the dogs literally flying planes. I guess I can kind of understand that. That does sort of get into a little bit more absurd, but none in a way that really bothered me. I was fine. Like, if I'm gonna believe that he can do this with his house and set up all of these balloons in one night, like I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
flying dogs aren't too much of a stretch.
Well, and then, months, I think, is so crazy that, yeah, he's probably going to build planes for his dogs, and train them how to use it. I thought it
Yeah.
was hilarious that don't they bite into a bone and that's how they start shooting. I like, is there some kind of
Oh, I
like
didn't even notice that.
a bone shaped?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. It worked for me. I mean, clearly it's
Hmm.
out there, but the whole movie is.
Yeah, I agree.
It's this very human story wrapped up in just this huge fantasy, which is just delightful,
Hmm.
really, in my opinion.
So, some things I learned in researching. So, Pete Docter said that the film reflects his friendships with Disney veterans Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston, and Joe Grant, who all died before the film's release, and thus the film was dedicated to them. So, they were
Oh,
kind of
that's
his
nice.
mentors,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah, Pete Docter is a real Disney historian,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I must say, I thought that I would love his tenure as president of Pixar a little bit more than I have. I don't think any of the movies have been awful, but I think almost every single one has been a bit of a mixed bag for me. Have been a little uneven. And I don't know if they're just sort of not embracing the story meeting in a group that it was such an important part of Pixar for so long, is just working on those stories the way that they did. If that's kind of, if they're more free reign, it seems like, I don't know, but it just seems like the movies have been more messy since he took over, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you bring up a really good point, and I've been concerned about that, and I don't know how much of it's Pete Docter, how much of it is the departure of John Lasseter, how
Hmm.
much of it is uh, Disney's focus on inclusivity,
Yeah.
and maybe all of the above.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to absolutely love this. Because I at that point I had absolutely loved every single one of his movies. But yeah, it's interesting. It's
well,
interesting.
the whole thing's interesting. I mean, like, it's a bit of a tangent, but I'm just worried generally for both Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
both of them have really lost their way again. I mean, it happens,
Yeah.
and they've been able to come back, but I don't know if they're going to be able to come back
It's
this time.
unusual that I feel like both of them happened at the same time. Yeah, I feel like in almost every other, because it seems like every 10 years or so, the Disney company goes through this like kind of purging and renaissance and kind of thing, whether it's even the parks, the other stuff. It just seems like they always kind of have this cycle,
Yeah.
even going back to the days of Walt,
Oh yeah.
you had the golden age, and then you had the wartime, and then you had to rebuild in the 50s,
And then
and
Walt died, and
yeah, and then another dark time. And so it's interesting. But yeah, we'll see.
well, we'll
I mean,
see.
they'll get out of it, but it,
Well, or I mean, I hope they do.
I
I don't know if they will.
I could see Pixar not getting out of it. I mean, Disney is going to still be a major company, but how they um I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how this Elemental does and some of these things.
I think Pixar
And
really needs a hit. They need a
yeah,
hit. They need a hit movie. They need a really good movie.
yeah,
And I mean, so does Disney. But we'll see. I wonder. I don't know. With Inside Out 2 coming out next summer, I know Pete Docter's not
yeah.
directing it, but is it going to have kind of his magic touch?
Hmm.
Also, just maybe Pete Docter could just be a better filmmaker than he is administrator. And you
Yeah,
know,
it's totally different skill sets. It's kind of weird
yeah,
how we expect that to just sort of roll over.
yeah.
And
And Jennifer Lee's had some hits at Disney. I mean, I
mhm,
thought
Encanto.
Encanto in particular was excellent, but
Mhm, mhm,
and kind of hit all the right marks with the stuff that Disney's trying to do right
mhm.
now. With inclusivity and and whatnot. And it was excellent. I thought it was just excellent artistically, but I don't,
Yeah.
anyway, I'm worried.
Yeah,
I'm worried
me
about it.
too.
And I hear what you're saying about Pete Docter, but I just felt so glad that at least we were able to get these wonderful movies out of Pete Docter. I think that,
Yeah,
Up
like this.
is just a really brilliant film.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And so then we have this whole scene with Muntz taking them to having them for dinner, and then things start to devolve
Well,
very
you
quickly.
learn what a nut job he
Yeah.
actually is.
Yeah.
And I know that's
He
kind
wants
of
Kevin.
one of the things, Rachel, that like these villain reveals that necessarily I think you and I both don't necessarily love. I thought this one worked.
Mhm.
What did you think of when we learned really what Charles Muntz is all about?
No, I agree. I think the problem partly is we've just seen it so many times
Oh
now
yeah.
that it's starting to lose. Like, it still worked for me in Frozen. It basically worked for me in Wreck and Ralph for that story. But now it's just been decades. I mean, it's been so long since they had a traditional evil villain. And then they've been doing this generational trauma villain for a while. And it's just, you can only play those cards so many times before it starts to feel a little
Yeah.
overkill. But I do think he's pretty good. And you got, Christopher Plummer. I mean, amazing.
Christopher Plummer is so good in this
Yeah.
role. So good.
And of course, Ed Asner's so good as Carl. And
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Merch Store. Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Researchers said that Pete Docter felt that Grant's personality influenced Carl's deceased wife, Ellie, more than the grouchy main character. And Carl was primarily based on Spencer Tracy, Walter Matthau, James Whitmore, and their own grandparents, because there was something sweet about these grumpy old guys.
Yeah.
That's what they said. So that is fun. So they took, I guess, Grant's deceased wife and kind of worked Ellie around that. But he definitely, I can see certainly his Lou Grant character. I think you can see that kind of in Carl.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, these sort of, and I have a weakness for like grumpy old men stories. I think part of it, he wasn't a grumpy old man. I have one grandfather that was a very grumpy old man, but we didn't have a good relationship. But my other grandfather was the sweetest, most wonderful human of my whole life that I've ever known. And he was the kind of person that just made everyone feel better about yourself. The fact he was such a Christ-like human and just a wonderful person. And I miss him literally every day. He passed away in 2001 and I still miss him every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
He
What
was
an
just such a
impact, he had on your
wonderful,
life.
yeah, he was a wonderful person. And so I think that's why I have such a soft spot for these kind of old man characters, because I
Yeah.
love my grandfather so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Gran Torino and movies like that.
Right.
But,
Exactly.
and then I love this scene like we were talking about where they're eating ice cream at Fenton's and counting all the blue cars and red cars, and whoever gets the most wins. And he says it might sound boring, but I think boring stuff is the stuff I remember the most. So have you
I love how, yeah, these we learn all these things from Russell
yeah.
about his life. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Fenton's
I
in the
have.
Bay Area?
I
Yeah, me
have.
too.
After I saw Up, I went because I didn't know about it until
Yeah.
then, and I went and sought it out, and it was tasty.
Yeah. They
And
have
I
a
wanted to
great
sit on the curb.
my dad grew up in the Bay Area. And
Oh,
my
okay.
grandparents were his parents were there for my whole life. And I had a really that with that grandparents, I had a really great relationship with my grandma. And so yeah, going to Fenton's, and they have a sundae called the Black and Tan
Yes.
that's made with almond ice cream, I believe, and then with caramel, which is the tan, and hot fudge, which is the black, obviously. And it is so good.
Delicious. Yeah. I can't remember specifically what I had there. I remember I just thought that was such a great name for for a Sunday, but delicious ice cream and just clearly an institution. I mean, how long
Yeah.
has it been in business? It's been there for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very similar
And it was
to
packed.
in Utah. We have Leatherby's. That's very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. So, all right. Then we have we have Muntz capturing Kevin, lighting the house on fire. And then Russell gets very upset and says, "You gave away Kevin. You just gave her away." And then Carl says, "This is none of my concern." And bad dog, bad dog.
Oh, I
And
know.
he says, "I'm going to Paradise Falls if it kills me." And then that's what he does. He goes, he takes the house, and he says, "Okay." They did this. And that's when you see Russell going away in the balloons.
And don't you
He's
love it that he's Russell ties himself to the balloons as well as he uses the
Oh yeah,
the leaf blower,
right. Yeah, that was good.
which is so. I mean, again, a great. I just thought these story guys are so clever. That's a great way for him to be able to move himself around, because clearly that's a problem. Like, how's he going to get up there?
Yeah.
Just to try to save Kevin.
And uh and when he takes all the furniture out, just before is when Carl reads he turns the page after the stuff I'm going to do, and you see Ellie saying, "Thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one."
Well, and Ellie put on all these great snapshots, of
Yeah,
their
their
life together, and that's I bawl. That's one of the
Yeah,
old
me
times
too.
I always cry.
So good.
You said it's that of my adventure book, always tears, but it's so meaningful because Carl. That's when he realizes he's been carrying around all this weight, and really Ellie loved him, and he needs to keep living. He's alive. He needs to keep
Yeah.
living, and anyway, I think it's so meaningful and so touching.
Yeah, I agree. And then you have this whole sort of final sequence of them going to get Kevin from Months, and he's using his tennis balls to distract the dogs, and you see Russell hanging from the hose. And before he wasn't able to climb up the hose, but then he's able to do it. He says,
He
"I will
gets
use all my wilderness training."
yeah. he Carl motivates him by doing the wilderness that call
Yeah, and yeah, Carl fights Months with his it's the oldest fight ever with them both, their
which
backs going
is so
out.
funny. I just thought,
Yeah.
Muntz has got this incredibly heavy sword, and Carl just stretches, and I love that. I think that's one of the many things that I've already mentioned, that I love about the show is that there's lots of humor,
Yeah.
and fun, like good humor. I just think this is funny. This is just so funny and
Yeah.
clever. Yeah.
It is a pretty kind of shocking death for Months, that
Oh, and I'm so happy.
with
I
the
mean,
balloons, and
like,
then
see a jerk. He's so
he
horrible. It is
yeah,
shocking.
he lets the house go, and then he goes.
He has like a Gaston death,
Mhm.
although from a little greater height. But
Yeah, he does.
yeah, he
And
has that fall.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
then the house ends up landing right by Paradise Falls.
That's the final shot of the movie, and I just thought it's just
So
poignant.
good.
Frosting on the cake, just
Yeah,
like,
because
they're
that's the
there.
same thing that they had in their house, was they
Yeah,
had
that
their
picture.
house with the Paradise Falls, and so it brings it all together. And it says, it's just it's just a house, Carl
Yeah.
says. And
Yeah.
that's when we see Kevin has babies.
You see
And
the cute babies, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's really cute.
it's so cute.
Have you seen that Kevin animatronic at a character in
I've never
Animal
seen it in
Kingdom?
person, but I've seen, YouTube
Yeah,
pictures of it,
it's
or
pretty
video of
amazing.
it. It's cool. I want to.
Yeah,
I love to see it. I thought it looked great.
yeah, yeah. So then they and they have a bird show, right, at Animal Kingdom, I
I
think.
think so. There is a
Yeah,
bird show, and I think, maybe it's themed to Up. Yeah,
yeah. To I've never been to Animal
it's
Kingdom.
Animal
Did they
Kingdom.
have a up attraction at the Pixar Pier in Disneyland?
No, they don't. I'm wondering if they have maybe one of the midway games is themed up. What they do have, and I think some remnants still remain in California Adventure. There's this wilderness trail that
Oh
was
yeah.
themed. It's had multiple themes. I think at some point it became a Brother Bear promotional area, but they also turned it into a spot where you could go in and like earn wilderness badges.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a kid activity area, which I thought was cute. I
Yeah.
walked through this for the first time in many, many years earlier, like when I was there in February, and
Mhm.
a couple of my friends I was with had never been there in there at all. So it was
Yeah.
interesting to walk around. It's really kind of schizophrenic now. They still have some of the Brother Bear stuff. They have the Up stuff. They also have this meet and greet. You can meet Raya from Raya and the Lost Dragon, Last Dragon there. So I was like,
That is
okay.
really random.
This is random. I mean, they had created a very nice setting for her, but it was still like,
Funny.
what does this have to do with the California redwoods? I don't know. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
that park
interesting.
doesn't have any, California theme really left, but or very little. But
Yeah.
it's still that was other than that, I don't think that there's any other Up stuff.
Yeah, about all that's left of California part is like the sourdough
Yeah.
place, and most of that's probably going to be gone
And
soon when
then
they do the San
do the San
Francisco.
Francisco, and then of course Buena Vista Street, which is just lovely. I think
Yeah.
I love the new
Oh yeah,
entrance.
that's true. Carthay
Yeah, the
Circle
Carson
and stuff.
Circle. Yeah.
Mm. Well, there we go. So then they take Muntz's ship, the Spirited Adventure, to San Francisco, and then Carl is Russell's friend to get his assisting the elderly badge.
And when Carl gives Russell the grape soda pin, of course, I'm bawling again.
Yeah, so
Uh,
good.
it's so cute, and just uh, then of course they're at Fens and they're counting the colors of the car, which I love, and the blimp is above the ice cream store since that's what they traveled,
Yeah,
back to America in, which I love. Um,
yeah, me
what I
too.
also love too, Rachel, is the end credits. I think are so fun with those just absolutely delightful photographs that they've drawn of Carl and Russell, having adventures, and Carl
Yeah,
being there for Russell. I just think they're the most adorable
I like
thing.
that too. And we should talk about the music that did Michael Giacchino
Oh
score that
my
won the
gosh.
Oscar. I
It's so
absolutely
deserving.
love it.
I love every note in that film.
Mhm.
Uh, I think
Yeah.
some of the music, of course, I love the themes that we've discussed that are played with the married life and whatnot. But I think that a lot of choices for the background music are super cool.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a Disney adventure from the 60s or something, just the way I think some of the way the music's used, and it's delightful for me.
It does have like a vintage quality to it.
It
I think
does.
I agree. I think you're right. And it's so charming.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, he deserved
Just
the Oscar for sure.
yeah. We're used to getting the Randy Newman scores from Pixar, and this had some of that whimsy that his scores tend to have, but
Yes,
this was just very, very, very special. So he did a great job. I'm glad that he won.
me too.
So yeah, for a long time, I feel like you have to pick something that's, when people ask what's your favorite movie, you have to have an answer, right? And it's hard because you like different movies for different reasons. And for a long time, this was my favorite, and it kind of got passed by Your Name, but it's definitely still in top 10. I still
Okay.
love it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if it's still in your top 10.
Yeah, I mean, and I also I go back and forth between Inside Out and Up because I love both of those movies, and I think they have similar kind of hearts and emotion and
Yeah.
things about same director and everything. But so sometimes I'll go back and forth. That's kind of similar to my Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. Kind of go
Yeah.
back and forth between the two. But those are definitely my two favorite Pixar movies, and then the original Toy Story would be my third.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. Uh typically I'll answer what my favorite Pixar is the original Toy Story.
Yeah, I love
But I
that.
gotta say, after this most recent watching of Up, I'm wondering if I might put Up. It's definitely, if not a tie, Up wins. I also really love Wall-E, and
Yeah, I love Wall-E
and
too.
so those are kind of
Coco is
my
another
three.
favorite.
Coco's
Yeah,
terrific.
that's another favorite.
It's
It's so
kind of
hard.
it is hard. It is hard, and as we've already discussed, for me, it's kind of depressing in that I just wonder if the best days of Pixar are over. But I trying to be optimistic, and hopefully, I know they've got a lot of smart, good people that work there, and that they can make some more really good movies. I hope.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do worry that the best has I am worried about Pixar as well. I really am. I think Elemental looks kind of derivative and just not that exciting to me. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I see it and I absolutely love it. I won't be able to go to the screening because I'm going to be at Christmas Con, but when I do get to see it, I hope I love it. I
Yeah,
just haven't been that impressed so far in what I've seen.
yeah.
And so yeah, well, uh, it's a it's an interesting situation, but we're glad that they gave us Up because it's a special film
It
and it has a
is a
huge
special
heart.
film.
hmm And so let us know what you think of Up. Are you in the naysayers that don't love it as much as we do? Love to hear your thoughts in the comments or on Twitter at Disney Talking. And Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure you follow me, the Hallmarkies Podcast. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and we get to talk about all kinds of movies on there. And then we have the merch store. We get hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. So check that out. And thanks again. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.